So my name is Margaret Hawthorn. I hold a Master's of Divinity completed in 2008 from the Quaker Seminary on the College of Earl, Indiana. But today I speak from the perspective of a parent of a child murdered in New Hampshire in 2010. And I think some of the people here are familiar with my story. Our daughter Molly was shot in the face, and the man who was convicted of her murder is serving 40 years to life sentence. At the time, this crime didn't qualify as a New Hampshire capital offense. It does now, which would be very distressing to me. It was a relief for us that our family had enough trauma without the specter of a second death connected with her murder. But I became aware of the death penalty in a visceral way in 1962 when the electric chair was used for its final time in Pennsylvania. And it was used to kill a man named Elmo Smith. And I vividly remember the grisly abduction and murder of a teenager named Mary Ann Mitchell. And that had happened 3 years earlier. And it had taken place about 50 miles within 50 miles of where I lived. There was a lot of outrage, and terrified families were, they all breathed a sigh of relief when Elmo Smith was arraigned 9 days later, arrested 9 days later. There was a lot of evidence that pointed in his direction. He had a track record of arrests for unsavory behavior. And to make a long story short, he was executed. But the problem is that previous conduct doesn't prove guilt. And sometimes I wonder if we ease our societal conscience with the rationale that even if the person didn't do this crime, they were bad A anyway, and it looks like they could have. And that kind of question go on. And Smith he had signed a confession under duress, and then recanted, and he never under duress, and then he quickly recanted it, and he claimed his innocence right up to the end. There wasn't very much attention paid to a police officer in the town where the murder occurred, who claimed throughout and for the rest of his life that Smith did not commit this murder, and he knew who had. Now, as a 14-year-old in 1962, when the execution happened, I didn't know about claims that this man, they might be executing an innocent man. But I remember the specter of the electric chair kept me up at night. But also, so did that haunting question, what if by any chance he didn't do it? And it's still unresolved. But with that execution, I became convinced that capital punishment is not right. As an adult, and particularly after the murder of our daughter, I broadened my knowledge about the death penalty and about practicalities and societal reasons why I disagree with the practice. But I have to say that my original objection really was over the possibility of killing an innocent person. That happened over 50 years ago, but today Richard Glossop sits on Oklahoma's death row, where he's been for nearly 20 years. And in October of 2015, Governor Mary Fallin from Oklahoma postponed his execution just minutes before he was to be injected with he was to be executed. Now, there's a lot of important evidence in his trial that's hearsay, but Fallin based her decision simply on issues having to do with the chemicals to be used and not on Glossop's possible innocence. He remains on death row today. Before being accused, he had no prior history of violence, no prior arrests. He was convicted because the man who was convicted of actually bludgeoning their mutual boss to death did a deal. Facing the death penalty, he suddenly came up with a story that Glossop had hired him to do the killing. There is no evidence of that, and yet Glossop is he's on death row. And the only reason he's not dead is because of the chemical cocktail controversy. So the criminal justice system served our family to the best of its ability, And it still doesn't come close to removing the pain we feel in losing your daughter. But my heart goes out to Richard Glossop's family, his parents, siblings, and children, who stand to lose their possibly innocent family member at the hands of the very state that's charged with upholding justice. And who's going to be there to assure them that every effort has been made to make up for their loss, the way this state has been for us? And then, speaking as a murder victim's family member, I do have one more question, and that is, no matter what opinion a family holds on capital punishment, the execution itself is an ordeal for the family members. It's never easy. And what would it be like for them later if it were determined that the state had killed the wrong person in their loved one's name? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony this afternoon. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.